The alarm screamed through the emergency bay of Sanctuary 7. Doctor lifted his head from the medical console, his three-fingered hands pausing over the display. Another mining accident. The third one this month. He signaled to his assistant, who immediately began preparing the trauma beds. The physician had served aboard this neutral medical station for 22 cycles. He had treated warriors with shattered exoskeletons, explorers suffering from radiation poisoning, and countless other species from across the galaxy. His database contained detailed medical records for over 300 different biological types. Doctors prided themselves on precision and preparation. They trusted data above all else. The emergency transport ship docked with a metallic clang. The bay doors opened and medical teams rushed forward with stretchers. Counted 6 patients. 4 were moving, crying out in pain. 2 lay still. His experienced eyes immediately categorized injuries by severity. A human male stumbled off the transport, refusing assistance despite the blood running down his face. He grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "You have to save her," the human said, his voice shook. "Lisa threw herself over the rookies when the blast hit. She saved them, you have to help her." Followed the human's desperate gaze to one of the still stretchers. The patient's vital signs displayed on the portable monitor strapped to her chest. The numbers made breathing slits tighten. "I am Doctor, what is your name?" he asked, gently removing the human's hand from his arm. "Jake, I'm the crew chief. Please, Doc, she's got a kid back home." Nodded and moved quickly to the stretcher. The patient was human, female, approximately 30 cycles by human standards. The scanner showed massive internal bleeding. Her chest had been crushed by falling debris. Her left lung had collapsed. Multiple organs showed severe trauma. Blood pressure was dangerously low. Oxygen saturation was critical. Lisa, according to her identification chip, an engineer, age 28. Appeared at side, his young face showing concern. "Doctor, the readings indicate." "I see them," interrupted. He checked the database on his wrist device. Human physiology parameters loaded instantly. He compared them to Lisa's current vitals. The numbers did not match. They could not match. According to every piece of data the medical institute had collected over decades of human contact, Lisa should be dead. Her heart should have stopped at the accident site. The blood loss alone exceeded survivable limits. The oxygen deprivation should have caused brain death within minutes. Yet her heart kept beating. Watch the monitor. The rhythm was irregular, weak, but persistent. Each beat showed on the display like a small act of defiance against the laws of biology. "Prepare surgical suite 3, ordered. "Full trauma protocol. Contact the blood bank. We need human-compatible supplies immediately." Hesitated. "Doctor, the database suggests." "I know what the database suggests," said quietly. "Prepare the suite." The surgical team moved with practiced efficiency. They transferred Lisa to the operating table while scrubbed according to human contamination protocols. Through the transparent wall, he could see Jake packing in the waiting area. 3 other humans sat with him, all bearing minor injuries they refused to have treated until they knew about Lisa. Had treated humans before, but never for trauma this severe. Minor injuries, illnesses, routine procedures. This was different. This was a patient who every statistical model in his database. The surgery began. His hands moved with careful precision, repairing what could be repaired. Human anatomy was complex in ways the database images had not fully conveyed. The organs were positioned to protect each other. Blood vessels had backup pathways. Everything was designed with redundancy. "Her pressure is dropping," announced. Adjusted his approach. He worked faster, sealing the internal bleeding. The suction equipment pulled away blood as quickly as he could find the sources. There were too many. The explosion had done catastrophic damage. "Heart rate is becoming erratic," another nurse said. Paused to check the monitor. Lisa's heart was struggling. The rhythm became irregular, then chaotic. The alarm tone changed. "She's crashing," said. "Doctor, we need to." The monitor flatlined. Immediately began standard resuscitation protocols. Chest compressions exactly as for human patients in the database. 30 compressions, 2 breaths from the ventilator. He continued the cycle. 1 minute, 2 minutes. "Nothing." "Doctor," said softly. "The database indicates that humans cannot be revived after this duration of cardiac arrest, combined with her existing trauma levels." Looked at the monitor. The flat line stared back at him. Then he looked at the surgical bay window. Jake stood pressed against the glass, his face frozen in horror. Prepared the defibrillator. He charged the paddles to the human voltage. Clear. The shock jolted through Lisa's body. Still nothing. "Doctor, we should call the time," urged. "She has been clinically deceased for." "Charge again," said. He applied the paddles a second time. The electrical current surged. Lisa's body convulsed. The monitor showed a single weak spike. Just one, then nothing. Checked his own scanner. That was likely a muscle spasm, the database indicates. "I saw it," said. He looked at the monitor again. That single spike had shown pattern. It was not random muscle movement. It was a heartbeat, one heartbeat. Before could protest, began chest compressions again. He counted them out, maintaining the exact rhythm for humans. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. "Charge the defibrillator to 120, ordered. "Doctor, that is above human recommendations." Jake called out. The glass was soundproof, but he activated the intercom. "What voltage for human defibrillation in extreme trauma cases?" Jake pressed the speak button. His voice came through shaky but clear. "We trained at 120 for combat situations. Higher voltages for massive tissue damage. The standard recommendation is too low." Adjusted the equipment. Clear. The third shock hit harder. Lisa's entire body lifted slightly off the table. The monitor remained flat for 3 long seconds. Then it beeped once, twice. A rhythm established itself, weak, irregular, but real. "I have a pulse," the nurse said, her voice surprised. Did not pause. He returned to the internal repairs, working quickly while Lisa's heart continued its stubborn beating. The organ should not be functioning. The blood loss was too severe. The oxygen deprivation too prolonged. The trauma too extensive. But it was functioning. For the next 4 hours worked. He repaired torn blood vessels. He removed damaged tissue. He reconstructed what he could and stabilized what he could not. Twice more, Lisa's heart faltered. Twice more brought her back. Each time became slightly easier, as if her cardiovascular system was learning, adapting, refusing to surrender. When finally stepped back from the table, his arms ached. Managed the closing procedures while checked Lisa's post-operative vitals. Blood pressure was still too low. Oxygen saturation remained critical. Heart rhythm was irregular. Every reading sat in the red zone of the display. Every number screamed that the patient should not be alive. But she was alive. Cleaned the surgical fluid from his hands and walked to the waiting area. Jake stood immediately, his eyes searching his face for answers. "She is alive," said simply. "I do not know how, I do not know for how long, but she is alive." Jake's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard on the waiting room bench. The other humans surrounded him, all of them crying, hugging, speaking in rapid human languages his translator struggled to parse. Returned to Lisa's recovery room. She lay motionless, machines monitoring every vital function. The heart monitor displayed its irregular rhythm. Beep, pause, beep, beep, pause. It was not textbook. It was not what the database showed as normal human cardiac patterns. But it was a heartbeat. The first 48 hours were the worst. Barely left the medical bay. He checked Lisa's vitals every hour, comparing them to the database predictions. The database said she should deteriorate. Her body said something different. On the second morning, found standing by Lisa's bed, staring at the monitors with an expression his assistant had never seen before. Confusion mixed with fascination. "Doctor, you should rest," said gently. "Look at this," said, pointing to the display. "Her blood pressure has increased by 2 points. Her oxygen saturation is up by 0.5%. These are microscopic changes, statistically insignificant." "Then why do you seem troubled?" "Because the database predicted continuous decline. She should be worse this morning, not better. Even marginally better defies the models." Checked his own scanner, running the data through the Medical Institute's central computer. The results appeared quickly. "The computer confirms our initial assessment. With this level of trauma, human patients show steady deterioration until either full organ failure or successful stabilization occurs. Stabilization typically requires 7 to 10 days. She has only been in recovery for 36 hours. Touch the monitor screen gently. What if the database is incomplete? The question hung in the air. For a physician, suggesting the database might be wrong was like questioning the laws of physics. Their entire medical system was built on documented certainty. A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Jake stood there, looking exhausted. He had not left the station. Neither had the other human crew members. They took turns sitting in the waiting area, maintaining a constant vigil. "How is she?" Jake asked. Stable said it was the truth, even if it made no scientific sense. "But I must be honest with you. Her condition remains critical. The next few days will determine her survival." Jake nodded and moved to Lisa's bedside. He placed a hand carefully on her arm, avoiding the medical tubes. "She's a fighter, Doc, you'll see." Studied the human's face. Jake's faith was not based on data or medical knowledge. It was something else. Something the people had lost ago in their pursuit of scientific certainty. "Tell me about her," said suddenly. Jake looked surprised. "Lisa, she's the best engineer I've worked with. Smart, careful, always thinking 3 steps ahead. She joined our crew 2 years ago, single mother. Her daughter Sophie lives on Earth with Lisa's parents while she works the mining circuit." "Why would she work such a dangerous job if she has a child?" "Money," Jake said simply. "Mining pays well. She wants to give her kid opportunities, good schools, a safe neighborhood, all the things Lisa never had growing up." He paused, his voice getting rough. "When that explosion happened, she didn't even think. And Amy are rookies, barely 20 years old. Lisa saw the blast coming and threw herself over them, took the full force of it. Processed this information. Self-sacrifice for non-relatives was rare in most species. The biological imperative was to preserve oneself, to pass on genetic material. Yet Lisa had acted against her own survival instinct to protect others." "Does this behavior surprise you?" asked. "No," Jake said. "That's just who Lisa is. She looks out for people, always has." Over the next day, other medical professionals began taking interest in Lisa's case. Doctor, a physician known throughout the station, requested access to the medical files. They were famous for their regenerative abilities, had treated some of the most difficult cases in the sector. She arrived in Lisa's room with permission, her silver skin reflecting the monitor lights. Her large eyes studied the readouts carefully. "Remarkable," she said in her musical voice. "By my calculations, this human has lost more blood than her body should contain. We have provided transfusions," explained, "both from our limited human blood stores and synthetic alternatives." "Yes, I see the records, but look here." Pulled up a cellular scan. "Her bone marrow is producing new blood cells at an accelerated rate, not as fast as regeneration, but far above the human baseline documented in your databases." Leaned closer to the screen. She was right. Lisa's body was manufacturing new blood cells at nearly twice the expected rate. "My species can regenerate," continued, "but we must enter a deep hibernation state to do so. Our bodies shut down all non-essential functions to focus energy on healing. This human remains in a coma, yet her body performs multiple complex healing processes simultaneously. Organ repair, blood production, tissue regeneration, all at once." "Is this normal for humans?" asked. His expression suggested she found the question amusing. "I have treated 43 human patients in my career. None exhibited this level of resilience. But then, none had injuries this severe while still living. Perhaps we simply have never observed what happens when a human truly fights for survival." A doctor arrived later that day. His species practiced biological engineering at levels most races could only dream of. He examined Lisa with scientific detachment, reviewing scans and cellular samples. "The database is incomplete," he stated flatly. His mechanical translator gave his words a cold precision. "Human redundancies are documented, yes, but the efficiency is not. These cells do not simply die when damaged. They adapt. They find alternative metabolic pathways. They redistribute resources. It is crude compared to bioengineering, but effective." "Why is this not in the medical literature?" asked. "Because your databases are built from healthy subjects and quickly deceased ones. No one has studied what happens when a human refuses to die, when their biology engages in what I can only call improvised survival." That evening, sat in his office reviewing all the data. His neat medical notes were becoming scattered with questions instead of conclusions. How much blood loss could a human survive? How long could their organs function under critical stress? What role did psychological factors play in physical resilience? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Jake stood in the doorway with another human, a young woman barely in her 20s with red-rimmed eyes. "This is Amy," Jake said. "One of the rookies Lisa saved. She wanted to meet you." Amy stepped forward hesitantly. "Thank you for saving Lisa. I know everyone says that, but I mean it. She's the reason I'm alive. The reason is alive. We were right under the blast point if she hadn't covered us." Her voice broke. Jake put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Lisa saved herself," said carefully. "I merely provided support while her body did something I have never witnessed before. She is still fighting. Every hour, every minute. Her heart continues to beat when it should not." "That sounds like Lisa," Amy said with a weak smile. "She doesn't know how to quit." After they left, returned to Lisa's room. He ran another full scan. Her vitals were unchanged from the morning, still critical, still at levels that should indicate impending death. But the heart monitor showed steady rhythm now. The irregular pattern had smoothed slightly, not much, but enough to measure. Pulled up the human database on his console. He began typing a new entry, marked as preliminary observation. Human patient Lisa, age 28, presents unprecedented cardiac resilience following massive trauma. Current theories about human survival thresholds require revision. Blood loss tolerance appears higher than documented. Organ function persists at critically low efficiency rather than complete failure. Cellular adaptation observed at rates not previously recorded in human medical literature. Psychological factors may influence physical outcomes in ways not yet understood. He paused, then added one more line. Recommend expanded study. Individual human resilience may exceed species averages by significant margins. Saved the file and looked at Lisa's unconscious face. She was pale, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that monitored every function. By all rights, she should be dead. The databases said so with mathematical certainty. But Jake said she was a fighter. Amy said she did not know how to quit, and the monitor showed a heart that kept beating. Had been trained to trust data above observation, to believe in statistical models over individual cases. But this case was teaching him something new. Sometimes the individual proved the statistics wrong. He reached out and adjusted one of the monitoring leads that had come slightly loose. The heart rate display flickered, then stabilized. Beep, 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 steady and persistent. "Not yet," said quietly to the empty room, echoing the thought that had become his constant observation. "You are not done yet." The monitor beeped in response. Lisa's heart continued its work, unaware of databases or statistics or the impossibility of what it was doing. It simply beat, carrying oxygen to cells that found ways to survive on far less than they should need, keeping alive a body that had every reason to surrender. Day 5 brought a change had stopped expecting. He arrived for his morning check to find already in Lisa's room, recalibrating the monitors with a confused expression. "The equipment must be malfunctioning," said without looking up. "The readings are inconsistent with yesterday's baseline." Checked the displays himself, his breathing slits widened. "These readings are not malfunctioning, they are improved." Lisa's blood pressure had risen by 8 points. Her oxygen saturation had increased by 3%. Her heart rate had strengthened and regularized. These were not microscopic changes. These were measurable improvements that should take weeks to achieve, not days. "Run a full diagnostic on all monitoring equipment," ordered. "I want to be certain." 20 minutes later, he returned with results. All equipment functioning within normal parameters. The readings are accurate. Sat down slowly in the chair beside Lisa's bed. He had been a physician for 22 cycles. He had seen miraculous recoveries. He had witnessed the regeneration process that regrew entire limbs. He had observed bioengineering that could reconstruct damaged organs. But he had never seen a patient who should be dead simply decide not to be. Jake arrived for his daily visit and noticed immediately. "Her color is better," he said. "She looks less pale." Nodded. "Her body is healing, faster than any model predicted." "Told you she was a fighter." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down, speaking to Lisa even though she remained unconscious. "Hey, Lisa, it's Jake. Day 5, you're doing great. The docs are amazed. Your crew is all waiting for you. And Amy visit every day. They're doing fine, not a scratch on them, thanks to you. Watch this ritual with interest." Jake had been speaking to Lisa every day, providing updates, sharing stories, maintaining a one-sided conversation with complete sincerity. The had initially found it strange. Now he wondered if the unconscious mind could hear, could process, could somehow contribute to the healing. "Does talking to her help?" asked. Jake shrugged. "Can't hurt. My grandma always said unconscious people can hear you. Don't know if it's true, but it makes me feel better. And maybe, somewhere in there, Lisa knows she's not alone." Later that morning, Doctor returned with another physician. They requested permission to take cellular samples for research. Granted it, curious what they would find. The results arrived by afternoon. Came to his office with data files and an expression he had learned to read as excitement. "Your human patient is rewriting what we understand about cellular adaptation," she said, projecting the data onto his wall screen. "Look at these blood cells. They are brand new, produced in the last 72 hours, but they are not identical to her original cells. Studied the images. I see variations. Are they abnormal?" "Not abnormal. Improved. Her body is producing cells optimized for low oxygen environments. These cells carry oxygen more efficiently than her baseline. It is like her bone marrow learned from the trauma and adjusted its production accordingly. That should not be possible without genetic engineering." "Correct, it should not. Yet here is the evidence." Pulled up another image. "Her damaged liver tissue shows similar adaptation. Cells on the boundary of the damaged area have altered their metabolic processes. They are functioning on minimal resources, keeping the organ alive while repairs occur elsewhere." Felt his understanding of human biology shifting with each new piece of data. How long can cells maintain this adapted state? Unknown. In physiology, such adaptations are temporary and require our regenerative hibernation. Your human patient is performing this while in a simple coma. Her brain activity shows she is not in deep hibernation. She is simply unconscious, yet her cellular systems are operating with a coordination that suggests active management. The implications troubled. If human cells could adapt this rapidly, this efficiently, then every medical database entry for humans was potentially incomplete. Treatment protocols would need revision. Survival thresholds would need reevaluation. That evening, the doctor requested a consultation. Found him in the station's research laboratory, examining Lisa's cellular samples under advanced equipment. "I have been comparing her cells to samples from healthy humans in our medical archives," they said. "The differences are remarkable, not in structure but in behavior. When I subject these cells to stress conditions, reduced oxygen, limited nutrients, they do not die. They enter a state I can only describe as stubborn persistence." "Explain," said. They adjusted the display to show microscopic video. "Watch this nerve cell. I have reduced oxygen by 60%. In a normal human nerve cell, function would cease within minutes. This cell continues to function at 40% efficiency. It has shut down non-essential processes and redirected all energy to maintaining the neural pathway. Watch the cell adapt in real time. It was crude, inelegant by engineering standards, but it was effective. Every cell I have tested shows similar behavior," they continued. "Heart muscle cells, liver cells, kidney tissue all demonstrate this capacity for what I am calling crisis function. They do not operate optimally, but they refuse to completely fail. It is as if human cellular biology has a third option between life and death: persist." "Why was this not documented before?" "Because you cannot observe this behavior in healthy subjects or recently deceased ones. You need a human who is dying but refuses to die. You need someone fighting at the cellular level. Lisa is providing us a window into what happens when human biology truly fights." Returned to Lisa's room that night. He reviewed all the data, all the observations, all the impossible facts. Jake was there, sitting in his usual chair, reading aloud from a worn book. He paused when entered. "Don't stop," said. "What are you reading?" "Poetry, Lisa's favorite book, found it in her personal belongings." Jake showed him the cover. It was in English, the human language translator handled easily. She always said poetry helped her think, figured maybe it would help her now. Listened as Jake continued reading. The words were about perseverance, about continuing when hope seemed lost. Human literature was full of such themes. He had always considered it dramatic exaggeration. Now he wondered if it was simply documentation of their species' core trait. On day 7, Lisa opened her eyes. was checking her morning vitals when it happened. One moment she was unconscious. The next, her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling with confusion. Lisa said calmly, though his heart rate increased with excitement. You are in a medical facility. You were injured. You are safe. Lisa's eyes focused on him. She tried to speak, but the breathing tube prevented it. Quickly paged and began the process of removing the tube. It was ahead of schedule, but her lung function had improved enough to make it safe. Once the tube was out, Lisa coughed, then whispered, How long? 7 days since your accident. The rookies and Amy, are they? They are fine, not seriously injured. You saved them. Lisa closed her eyes in relief. A tear ran down her cheek. Jake burst into the room, having been alerted by. He stopped in the doorway when he saw Lisa was awake. Lisa, thank God. Hey, Jake, Lisa said weakly. Told you the inspection was overdue on that section. Jake laughed and cried at the same time. You did, you absolutely did. I should have listened. Over the next hours ran neurological tests. He expected deficits. Oxygen deprivation during her cardiac arrest should have caused brain damage. The tests showed none. Lisa's cognitive function was intact. Her memory was clear. She knew her name, her location, her daughter's birthday. She even remembered the moments before the explosion. I saw it coming, she told. Had maybe 2 seconds, just enough time to grab the kids and cover them. Then everything went white. You remember nothing after? Nothing until waking up here. How bad was it? Considered how much to tell her. He decided on honesty. You should have died multiple times. Your injuries exceeded survivable parameters according to every database in medical literature. Your heart stopped during surgery. We revived you 3 times. Lisa absorbed this information quietly. But I'm alive. Yes, against all statistical probability, you are alive. Then I guess your databases are wrong, Lisa said with a weak smile. Found himself returning the smile. I am beginning to believe you are correct. The news of Lisa's awakening spread through the medical station. Other doctors requested to observe her recovery. The medical council sent messages requesting detailed reports, documented everything meticulously, knowing this case would change human medical protocols across Lisa's recovery over the following weeks. Every projection created. Each morning brought new improvements that should have taken months, not days. By day 10, she was breathing entirely on her own. By day 14, she was sitting up in bed. By day 20, she took her first steps with assistance. Documented everything with meticulous care. Other medical facilities across the sector had begun requesting his data. The case of Lisa was becoming famous in medical circles, or perhaps infamous, depending on which doctors you asked. Some called it a miracle. Others suggested measurements were flawed. A few implied he had somehow the records. Did not care about their opinions. He cared about understanding what was happening in front of him. How do you feel today? He asked Lisa during her morning examination. It had become their routine. She would describe her condition in simple human terms. He would translate that into medical data. Like I got hit by a mining truck, Lisa said, but a smaller truck than yesterday. His translator took a moment to parse the comparison. Human metaphors still confused him sometimes. Your pain levels are decreasing. Yeah, and I'm hungry all the time. Is that normal? Very normal. Your body is rebuilding itself. It requires substantial energy. He checked her latest scans. Her liver function had improved by 30% in the last week. Her lung capacity was at 70% of normal. Her heart showed no signs of permanent damage despite stopping 3 times during surgery. Doc, can I ask you something? Of course. Lisa gestured at all the monitoring equipment surrounding her bed. How bad was it really? Everyone keeps saying I'm lucky to be alive, but I can see it in their faces. It was worse than lucky. Considered his words carefully. He sat down in the chair beside her bed. You lost more blood than your body contained. Your heart stopped 3 times. Your organs shut down to critical levels. I revived you using methods that violated medical protocols. By every database, every statistical model, every piece of knowledge I had been trained to trust, you should have died on the operating table. Lisa was quiet for a moment, but you didn't give up on me. No, your heart monitor said you were not finished. I learned to trust that more than my databases. Thank you, Lisa said softly, for listening to the monitor. Physical therapy began that afternoon. A human therapist had been brought in from another station specifically to work with Lisa. Her name was a middle-aged woman with gentle hands and firm encouragement. "We're going to take this slow," said. "Your body has been through significant trauma. We need to rebuild your strength carefully." But Lisa's progress was anything but slow. Exercises that should take weeks to accomplish, she managed in days. Muscle memory returned quickly. Neural pathways reconnected with efficiency that amazed even. In 20 years of rehab work, told, "I've never seen recovery like this." Her fine motor control returned in 3 days. Most patients take 3 weeks. Her balance is nearly perfect already. Her coordination is ahead of schedule. If I didn't know better, I'd say she was never injured at all. Observed Lisa's physical therapy sessions when he could. He watched her face as she worked through exercises. She showed determination, frustration when something was difficult, triumph when she succeeded. Very human emotions he was learning, very human persistence. Jake visited every day without fail. He brought news from the mining station, updates about the crew, stories that made Lisa laugh. The sound of her laughter, noticed, seemed to improve her vital signs more effectively than some medications. One evening, Jake brought visitors, and Amy, the 2 rookies Lisa had saved, stood nervously in the doorway. "It's okay," Lisa said, waving them in. "I don't bite." Amy rushed forward and hugged Lisa carefully, crying into her shoulder. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have double-checked that section before." "Hey," Lisa interrupted gently. "Stop. It was an accident. Could have happened to anyone. You're both okay. That's what matters." Stayed by the door, his young face full of guilt. "You almost died because of us." "I almost died because an old coolant line failed," Lisa corrected. "And I didn't die. I'm right here. A little beat up but healing, so no more guilt. Deal." They both nodded, though the tears kept coming. After they left, Lisa was quiet for a long time, checked her vitals and found her heart rate elevated. "Are you in pain?" he asked. "No, just thinking about my daughter, Sophie. She's 7 now. I've been gone for 6 months this contract. I send her videos every week, but it's not the same as being there." "Why work so far from home?" Lisa smiled sadly. "Because mining pays 3 times what I could make on Earth. Because Sophie deserves better than the neighborhood I grew up in. Because I want her to have choices I never had. Education, opportunities, safety." She paused. "My parents take good care of her while I'm gone, but she needs her mom. I promised her this was the last long contract. After this, I take a job closer to home." Understood sacrifice for offspring. That was universal across species. But human parents seem to take it to extremes. Working dangerous jobs in distant sectors, enduring years of separation, all to provide abstract things like opportunity and education. "Your daughter will understand what you did for her," said. "I hope so. Jake said I've been out for 3 weeks now. Sophie must be so worried. Can I send her a message?" Arranged for video communication. He left the room to give Lisa privacy, but he could hear her voice through the door. She was explaining to her daughter that she had been hurt but was getting better, that she would be home soon, that she loved her very much. When returned, Lisa was crying quietly. "She's gotten so big," Lisa said. "Just in 6 months, I'm missing so much." 3 weeks after waking, Lisa walked the length of the medical bay without assistance and watched with matching expressions of professional amazement. "Her recovery is complete by human standards," said. "She'll need to avoid heavy work for another month, but structurally she's healed. Whatever internal damage she suffered, her body has repaired it." Pulled up the comparison scans, Lisa's current imaging next to the scans from the day of surgery. They looked like 2 different people. The first showed a body in catastrophic failure. The second showed a body that was healthy, functional, whole. "How," asked, staring at the images, "how is this possible in 3 weeks?" "Human cellular adaptation," said, "combined with psychological determination. Her body learned to heal faster because it needed to, because she needed to get home to her daughter, because giving up was not an option she accepted." Still looked skeptical. "That sounds like spiritual philosophy, not medicine." "Perhaps human medicine requires understanding both," replied. Doctor came to say goodbye to Lisa before the human left the station. She brought a small gift, a healing crystal that was symbolic rather than functional. "You have taught me much," said. "My species prides itself on regeneration, but we must sleep to heal. You healed while awake, while fighting, while refusing to surrender. That is a different kind of strength. Lisa accepted the crystal with thanks. I just did what anyone would do. No, said gently. You did what humans do, there is a difference. The doctor also visited, though his farewell was more clinical. I have filed 17 research papers based on your cellular samples, he said. Your case will be studied for generations. Human biology is far more sophisticated than our databases suggested. Crude, perhaps, but remarkably effective. Glad I could help science, Lisa said with amusement. On the day of Lisa's discharge, conducted one final examination. Every system showed normal function. Her heart rate was strong and steady. The irregular rhythm from those first critical days was gone, replaced by the textbook pattern his database had always expected. You are cleared to leave, said. With restrictions, no heavy lifting for 4 weeks, no high-stress activities. Continue your exercise routine. Return if you experience any complications. I will, and Doc, thank you for everything, for not listening to your databases, for trusting that my heart wasn't done yet. Felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. Did not form attachments to patients easily, but this case had been different. This patient had been different. You saved yourself, Lisa. I merely provided support while you did the impossible. Jake and the crew were waiting in the docking bay. They cheered when Lisa appeared, walking on her own, looking healthy despite everything she had endured. They were heading back to the mining station together. Lisa had requested immediate return to work, though she would be on light duty for the next month. Before boarding the transport, Lisa turned back to find watching from the bay entrance. Hey, Doc, she called out. Update your databases, tell them humans are tougher than they think. Raised one hand in the human gesture of farewell. I already have, he said quietly, knowing she could not hear him across the distance. The transport departed, returned to his office and pulled up the medical reports he would submit to the medical council. Detailed documentation of Lisa's case, cellular analysis, recovery timelines, recommendations for revised human survival protocols. 6 months passed before heard from Lisa again. The message came through standard communication channels, a simple video tagged with her identification code. He opened it in his office between patient consultations. Lisa appeared on screen, looking healthy and whole. She stood in what looked like a small apartment. Behind her, a young girl was doing homework at a table. Hey, Doc, Lisa said with a smile. Thought you want to know I made it home. That's Sophie behind me. She's the reason I fought so hard. Figured you should see her. She paused, and her expression became more serious. I'm back on Earth now. Took a job with a local engineering firm. Less money, but I'm home every night. Sophie says thank you for saving her mom. I say thank you for believing my heart wasn't done. Take care of yourself. The message ended. Found himself replaying it 3 times, studying the image of Sophie. 7 years old, focused on her homework, unaware that her existence had kept her mother's heart beating when all medical science said it should stop. He saved the message in his personal files, next to his case notes on Lisa. The formal response from the medical council arrived 2 weeks after submitted his reports. He read it with growing frustration. They acknowledged his documentation. They praised his meticulous records, but they classified his recommended protocol changes as experimental pending further study. Further study, muttered Tu. They want more data before accepting that their databases are incomplete. It is the way, said diplomatically. Change requires extensive evidence. I gave them extensive evidence. Cellular samples, surgical footage, recovery timelines that defy statistical models. What more do they need? Perhaps they need to see it themselves. One case, no matter how well documented, is still just one case. Nu was right. The medical establishment moved slowly, carefully, treating each change to established protocols with extreme caution. It was what made them excellent doctors. It was also what made them resistant to new ideas. But other medical facilities were more receptive. Over the following months, received inquiries from hospitals across the sector. They had human patients who had survived impossible situations. They wanted to understand the mechanisms. They wanted to share data. A trauma center on a human colony world sent detailed records of a construction worker who survived a fall that should have been fatal. A military hospital shared cases of soldiers who recovered from wounds that exceeded known human survival thresholds. A research station documented a scientist who survived explosive decompression for 45 seconds before rescue. All of them showed the same pattern. Human biology finding ways to persist when death seemed certain. Cellular adaptation, cardiovascular resilience, the stubborn refusal to surrender. Compiled it all. He created a comprehensive database of human resilience cases. He documented patterns, identified common factors, developed new treatment protocols, and slowly other doctors began using his methods. One day came to his office with news. The Medical Council has approved your protocols for experimental use. They are being distributed to hospitals throughout space. Felt satisfaction but not triumph. Experimental use was a start, but full acceptance would take years. Still, it was progress. There is more, continued. The Council wants you to present your findings at the Pangalactic Medical Conference next cycle. They believe your research on human resilience has implications for treating multiple species. The conference was the most prestigious medical gathering in known space. Doctors from hundreds of worlds attended to share discoveries and advance their fields, had never been invited to present before. I will prepare a presentation, he said simply. The conference took place on a neutral space station specifically built for such gatherings. Arrived to find the presentation halls packed with physicians from across the galaxy. His session was scheduled in a small lecture room. He had not expected much attendance. He was wrong. The room filled to capacity 30 minutes before his presentation. Doctors crowded the doorway. Some sat on the floor. Recognized species he had only read about. They had all come to hear about the human who should have died but refused. Began with facts. He showed the initial scans of Lisa's injuries. He heard gasps from the audience as the full extent of the damage became clear. He explained the database predictions, the statistical models that said she could not survive. Then he showed the surgical footage, the moment her heart stopped, the 3 revivals, the irregular rhythm that should have indicated dying but instead showed fighting. I spent 22 cycles trusting databases over observation, said. Lisa taught me that databases document the average, but patients are individuals. Humans especially seem to exist outside our statistical models. He presented the cellular data, the accelerated blood production, the adaptive metabolic changes, the coordinated healing response that happened while Lisa was merely unconscious, not in deep regenerative hibernation. The question, continued, is why? Why do humans show this level of resilience? I have a theory. He pulled up an image of Earth, the human. Humans evolved on what they call extreme weather, dangerous predators, disease, scarcity. For millions of years, their ancestors survived by being tougher than everything trying to kill them. Those who could persist through injury, who could heal faster, who could push their bodies beyond normal limits, those were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. He showed comparative data. Human bone density versus other species, human pain tolerance, human temperature regulation, human immune response. Every system in human biology is designed for survival under adverse conditions. Their cells do not give up easily because their ancestors could not afford to give up. Natural selection created a species where persistence is written into every cell. The room was silent. Could see doctors taking notes, recording the presentation, discussing quietly with colleagues. But there is another factor, said. Lisa did not fight only for herself. She fought for her daughter. Humans form powerful attachments. They will endure extraordinary suffering for those they love. This psychological component may influence their biological resilience in ways we do not yet understand. He ended with Lisa's final message to him, the video of her at home with Sophie, the simple proof that her fight had been worth it. The database said her heart should have stopped, concluded. But the monitor said not yet. I learned to trust the monitor. I recommend you do the same. The audience erupted in questions. They lasted for 2 hours beyond the scheduled time. Doctors wanted to know about specific treatments. They wanted copies of his protocols. They wanted to discuss cases from their own facilities. A human military doctor approached after the crowd dispersed. She was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. Thank you, she said simply. I work in battlefield medicine. I've seen soldiers survive things that should kill them, but command always questioned my reports. They said the injuries couldn't have been as severe as I documented. Your research validates what I've been seeing for 20 years. I documented only what I observed, said. That's more than most do. It's easier to trust the database than to question it, she smiled. Easier but not always right. Word of presentation spread. Within weeks, medical journals across the galaxy published his research. The case of Lisa became required study in xenobiology courses. Young doctors learned to question their databases when treating humans. But greatest satisfaction came from a different source. Medical centers began reporting improved survival rates for human patients. Trauma cases that previously ended in death were now ending in recovery, because doctors had learned to trust the monitors over the models, because they understood that human hearts said not yet when databases said stop. 5 years after Lisa's accident, received another message. This one was from an address on Earth. The video showed Lisa, older now, standing in front of a small house. Sophie stood next to her, 12 years old and smiling. "Doc," Lisa said, "Sophie is starting advanced placement science classes this year. She wants to study medicine. Says she's going to be a doctor like you someday. I thought you should know that saving one stubborn engineer might have created a future doctor. She's already smarter than I'll ever be." Sophie leaned into frame. "Thank you for saving my mom. She told me everything. About how you didn't give up even when you should have. That's what doctors do, right? They fight for their patients." The message ended with them waving goodbye. Saved it next to the first message. 2 data points and a life saved. A mother and daughter. Simple proof that medicine was about more than databases and statistics. Found him staring at the screen. Good news. "The best kind," said. "A patient who lived, a child who has her mother, and perhaps a future doctor who will trust monitors over models." That evening updated his personal medical journal one final time regarding Lisa's case. He wrote, "Patient Lisa 5-year follow-up, alive and healthy, daughter thriving, outcome successful beyond all predictions. Conclusion, when treating humans, remember that their evolution shaped them to survive. Their psychology drives them to fight. Their cells persist when they should fail. The database will say impossible. The patient will prove otherwise. Trust the heart monitor. It knows things we do not." He closed the file and looked at the current patient roster. 3 humans scheduled for various procedures this week. Once, he would have consulted only the databases. Now, he consulted the databases and remembered Lisa. Remembered a heart that refused to stop beating. Remembered a monitor that said not yet when science said finished. Remembered that sometimes the most important medical knowledge cannot be found in any database. It has to be learned from patients who teach doctors what is truly possible. Outside his window, ships came and went from Sanctuary 7's docking ports. Each one carried people from dozens of worlds. Each one potentially carried patients who would challenge everything thought he knew. He looked forward to meeting them, because Lisa had taught him the most important lesson of his career. The database can tell you what should happen. The patient will show you what actually does. And sometimes, the difference between those two things is called hope. The heart monitor in his office, the one he had kept from Lisa's surgery, sat on his desk. Had modified it to work as a clock. Every beep marked another second. Every rhythm reminded him to trust observation over data. Beep. Not yet. Beep. Not yet. Beep. The human heart, stubborn and persistent, refusing to accept impossible. Just like the species it belonged to. At the end, he added a personal note. This case demonstrates the inadequacy of database medicine when treating humans. Their resilience cannot be captured in statistical models. Their determination cannot be in survival percentages. When treating humans, trust the patient more than the data. Trust the heart monitor more than the database. They will show you what is possible when the individual refuses to accept impossible. He saved the file and transmitted it too. Then he looked at the photograph Lisa had given him before leaving. Her and Sophie, taken before Lisa left for the mining contract. A mother and daughter smiling at the camera. A simple image that explained everything about why Lisa had survived when she should not have. The database said she should have stopped, but Sophie needed her mother, and Lisa's heart had listened to that need more than any medical model. Not yet, her heart had said, not yet. He galaxy. But in quiet moments, watching Lisa sleep naturally instead of in an unconscious coma, watching the monitors show steady improvement, understood that some things could not be captured in reports. The determination in Lisa's eyes when she asked about the rookies. The relief in Jake's voice when she woke. The stubborn persistence of a heart that refused to stop. The database had been wrong about Lisa, wrong about human resilience, wrong about survival thresholds, and suspected they were wrong about many other things. Statistics could predict populations, but they could not account for individuals who simply refused to accept impossible. He updated his medical log one more time. Patient Lisa awakened on day 7, exceeding all predictions, neurological function intact, physical recovery progressing at unprecedented rates. Conclusion: human survival parameters require extensive revision. Individual resilience may be the most important factor, not species averages. The database said she should have stopped. The patient disagreed. Outside Lisa's room, the heart monitor beeped with strong, steady rhythm. Not yet, it said with every beat. Not yet. But surrender was not a concept humans accepted easily. Pulled up his medical logs and began documenting the surgery. In the notes section, he paused. Then he typed carefully, "Patient Lisa presents cardiac resilience beyond documented human parameters. Database predictions of mortality proved inaccurate. Recommend observation and further study. Current status, critical but stable. Prognosis, unknown." He saved the file and looked at the monitor again. The irregular rhythm continued. Beep, pause, beep. The database said she should have stopped. The monitor said not yet.